community radio so important? I've been a radio listener all my life. Even as a child, it started because I couldn't sleep at night. Radio was a good thing. And fell in love with the more free format radio stations that used to be out there when it was easy for stations to come on the dial. I've been living in the Bay Area for a long time, and there's still more community stations like this one on the air than in other markets. In a lot of other markets, you go down in that non-commercial dial space below 91 is just NPR, government-funded news radio, which has swallowed up stations all over the country, built a monopoly, and basically religious stations. The cost of stations have gotten so high through a lot of corporate maneuvers that the little guy can't get on. So only the ones that were on for a long time, like KUSF, are able to do it. And they're dwindling away really fast as these things can sell for millions and millions, usually, to an NPR. And now this corporate chain, Entercom, which used to be Viacom, I think it used to be the second biggest one to Clear Channel, is making some sleazy maneuvers where they're moving what was a corporate entity, their classical stations, down to the low end of the dial, cookie cutter, prefabricated radio, and basically replacing KUSF with another classic rock station on 102.1. And it's just really terrible. 2001, there was a law that was forced on the FCC to license low-power FM stations, and between them and the National Association of Broadcasters, the lobby arm for the major broadcasting corporations, they pulled a lot of maneuvers to where very few stations were licensed across the country, most of them religious stations in rural areas, none in the Bay Area. And there had been a lot of maneuvering in Congress since 2007 up until just last December, and something called the Local Community Radio Act was passed by Congress, which mandates that now the FCC has to license smaller micro radio broadcasters down the other end of the dial. But over this 9 years, and right now, the FCC has been giving away those dial spaces to any corporation that comes and gets them. And they're starting to let the corporations go in the smaller areas. So there's mostly nothing left. San Francisco, you've got KPOO 89.5 that's really unique. It broadcasts black community radio, which you're not going to hear anywhere else. And KUSF, basic college radio station, and one of the best I've ever heard. And so there's not much there, and it's basically convenient to the FCC and the radio companies because they're basically running a political monopoly on the air. No dissenting voices. You're not really going to hear a dissenting voice politically on commercial radio or on NPR. And then music culture is as corrupt for all the same reasons, in that some studies on this thing have shown that there's like allegedly 30 different genres, but from all these companies across commercial radio, genre meaning a type of music. Most of them overlap. They're all created by the main corporate giants like Clear Channel, Viacom, Entercom, and all there. Most of them overlap by an amazing amount of percent, and so the radio musically has become a corporate jukebox of basically 5,000 songs played over and over again, 80 to 100% of them on any station by the 5 to 10 recording CD producing conglomerates across the country. It was called a twin bottleneck, a little monopoly between the few companies that own radio stations and the biggest producers that produce commercial CDs, and that's all you hear. So that's why this sale is so bad for radio. And I've been a DJ wherever I can be, which is very few places, and mostly on micro radio, where unlicensed micro radio, which brought on all these reform laws where people just jumped into an open spot and started broadcasting, and then they get criminalized and thrown off. So it's hit and miss, short term, low watts. We had 2 of them knocked out in this market. San Francisco Liberation Radio in 2003, which had moved up above a high area in the Castro, and a lot of diverse music, a lot of comedy, and as surprising as it sounds, even 2003, having a ton of women DJs on there was basically unique, even though it's, you know, gender balance is coming through. But just what was there, and some of the broadcasters were broadcasting hard-hitting stuff against the war, where anybody who, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, where anyone who said anything in the mainstream press was just purged. And once that got popular, it was taken down. Pirate Cat got taken down under the same legalities last year around this time, where it had been broadcasting for 10 years, and they finally decided to criminalize the station and the owner who was doing it publicly with a huge fine, and now they got a station down in some small market. And so those 2 just left recently. KUSF, I always thought, well, at least this one's here. But of all the stations, I thought it was the best, absolutely the best for music programming. So I'm sad as a listener. I live a busy life, some hard-hitting work, all kinds of stuff people do as adults. And I love music, so I could rig up that station maybe at work or when I'm at home doing nothing. Long runs of music, really eclectic, not just one genre. It's not like, okay, punk from 8 to 10, reggae from 10 to 12. DJs who were really good at mixing a lot of music. And what I liked the most about it, what's been lost on radio, was that the majority of it was new music. And it seemed like they were able to barter for this music, because radio now is paying millions and millions of dollars to run a station and playing the same things. For anyone to get a private music collection is just a lot of money, and you're just listening by yourself. But they got all this stuff in, so they'd break all these bands, be really interactive as far as announcing who was playing at what clubs, getting free tickets to those shows for announcing it, giving some away on the air. It's nice for me to pick up free tickets every once in a while. And then for my own DJing work, I might get some cheap CDs from them to go play. But hear all this new music, know where to go to hear it, who I want to listen to, what I might get. And it helped me as a DJ too, the same with films and other arts in the community. It would give them a little bit of bartering kudo on the air, and it was really interactive. And it was such just an optimistic kind of a thing. I didn't listen as much to the public affairs, though I understand they meet their mandate, but the disability rights show on Sunday afternoon, that really helped me in my own work, because some of my work is helping people with disabilities asserting their rights. And I've never heard a show that thorough and in-depth and hard-hitting. A corporate radio station, if they had a show like that, they would be bringing on a researcher, an executive director, and so would mainstream radio. Something filtered through the voices of somebody running an organization or getting published to be a researcher. But this show had people with disabilities coming on, talking about problems that people were encountering that needed to be solved by activism, also talking about rights and laws that are out there, which are not part of the public knowledge. And I'd go back into my work and tell people what was going on, and of course done by people with disabilities, not by the executive director who serves them. So the whole thing was great. I never thought that I thought this one was going to be the last one remaining on there, and the way it was done, so quick and so sleazy, just leaves me personally with a void. Where am I going to turn to interact, and what am I going to listen to? And the last part I want to say, I was just talking to Erwin out there, is I was a part of this in the early 90s, a station in Connecticut, a college station. And it sounds like it was kind of like this one, where it was on for a lot of years. It wasn't muckraking or anything, but the university really didn't want to fund it anymore. And so they just made a move to cut the whole thing off. There was a lot of public pressure, and they ended up negotiating with them that they were going to fund their own radio station, and the university would lease it out to them. And so they've been getting lease payments for 20 years for this. Much more of a cash cow than what this KUSF priest got, $3 million or something, which is just a drop of the bucket on there. And also, political station KPFA in Berkeley, they were trying to sell that for $5 million, purge it off the airwaves about 11 years ago or so. And the public pressure was so immense that they just sort of shamed and pressured them out of the sale. So I'm sitting here because I know the same thing that the DJs are saying now, is that there's no particular legalism to save it. The FCC is pretty corrupt. And also there's no dial spaces. If they lose it, it'll be great to be working towards trying to get a dial space in the future, but where is it? So that's why I'm here, to know that the public pressure and the political pressure can do it, and it's really the only thing that is going to do it.